Welcome to the Alain Guillot podcast, a podcast about life, leadership, and money matters. Our guest today is Kelly Weill. Kelly is a journalist at the Daily Beast. She covers extremism and the internet. She's a leading voice on the role of the internet on current affairs. And today we will be speaking about her new book, Of the Edge, Flat Earthers, Conspiracy Culture, and Why People Will Believe Anything. Kelly, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So Kelly, I talking about flat earthers is kind of ironic that you have background of the round earth behind you. Is Yeah, I don't think I believe that it's a figment of our imagination. But can we start by you telling us a little bit about your background? How is it that you got into journalism, for example, and also tell us a word or two about the Daily Beast.
Sure. I have always loved writing, and as I started pursuing my schoolwork, I thought, well, what can I do to make writing a profession? And so I started getting into journalism, and from there, I found work at the Daily Beast, which I've found to be just a really exciting place to work. They're really receptive to interesting and sometimes offbeat reporting on the internet, which has always been this huge interest of mine. And they've really nurtured my reporting on the flat earth movement when people saw it and they said, "What is that?" And I was able to do some very fun early reporting for them on this. And it eventually became my book.
Well, I have to tell you, for years, I have been seeing links to a website or to a magazine or newspaper called the Daily Beast. And because of the name, I thought it was some kind of parody or some kind of scam. And I never, although the titles were quite captivating, I never click on it until I ended up, I find out that it was a reputable publication, but the name really doesn't doesn't help.
Yeah, the name is a reference to a newspaper in a historical novel, but most people don't pick up on that. So, it's I don't know, it's a fun name, but it's definitely out there.
Okay, so how is it that you got involved into doing this kind of research?
So, for goodness, for the past almost 10 years now, I've been very interested in reporting on the strange parts of the internet. And I would just kind of monitor those for the Daily Beast and keep an eye on them. And around 2017, I started seeing references to the flat earth movement pop up on some of the forums that I monitored. And I said, no way is that right. Who could possibly believe earth is flat? So I started digging into it and asking, are they serious and why do they believe what they do? And I found that it's a very serious movement and it's larger than you think.
Okay, so if we go back in history, at the beginning, all of us believed that the Earth was flat, and that was the predominant belief for thousands of years. And then in the last few hundred centuries, let's say 500 centuries, we cannot discover that the earth was not flat, it was in fact round. Even I think Galileo Galilei went to prison for suggesting that the earth goes around the sun or something. And then through science, well, we make this discovery: the earth is not flat, it's round. But there are some people who never came around to that belief, and now it has become more predominant. Who are these people, and how come they were never seduced by science?
Well, you're right. We have believed that Earth was round for a very long time, even longer than 500 years. We've believed it for about 2000 because there's some pretty basic math that you can do and that Greek astronomers were starting to conduct very long ago. The reason flat Earth has started reemerging is because in around the 1840s, there was a conspiracy theorist, a fake doctor, who started promoting flat Earth theory. He started doing funny little experiments on a plot of land that he owned, and he started claiming that that proved Earth was flat. Now, obviously, it didn't prove that. He was doing his measurements wrong, but Those claims came at an interesting time when there were a lot of scientific developments, ideas like evolution and a rise in the natural sciences. And not everyone wanted to believe that. Some people wanted a reason to distrust science and say, let's just throw it all out the window. And a theory like flat Earth, which was so all encompassing, it said everything you know about the world is wrong, that let people discredit science in entirety. And I think a lot of that motivation has stuck around for modern flat earthers.
Okay, fair enough. But then, according to the Fluff Earther, what is their description of the Earth? Is it a pancake? Is it a frisbee? What does it look like?
It varies. They don't all agree exactly. I think the most common description is like a frisbee, and they say it has a wall of ice around the outside, and most of them say it's contained in a dome, like a big
Okay.
snow globe. So there are differences in their models, but that's the main one.
Okay, and this movement, how big is it? How many people are in this community? And is it the US only or is it international?
It's very international, and it's hard to know how many people are involved in it. Most people won't tell you that they're a flat earther because they're a little embarrassed about it. But I know it's quite large because I've been to meetups with 600 flat earthers in one room. So if you're getting that many people to show up, it's not exactly a small movement anymore.
Okay, but I wonder if someone has to travel from, I don't know, Los Angeles to, let's say, a conference in London, uh, they are going around the globe. How do they explain to themselves that far?
It's very difficult. And I've tried sometimes to have arguments with flat earthers, especially actually about flight patterns. But I think the thing to remember is that flat earthers aren't making this claim because it's the most grounded in science, is not the most compelling argument because it's not a compelling argument at all. It's totally false. But because they want to believe it. And so when you start bringing up new evidence, like pointing out certain flight patterns that maybe they've flown on multiple times, they'll start making excuses and they'll say that, well, the pilots are lying to you about where they're flying, or they'll come up with reasons to dismiss evidence without really interrogating it.
Wow. Okay. So we have people who are in two extremes. We have the flat earthers, and we have people who are at the cutting edge of technology, and I think that reflects also their income level. Do you think this kind of belief is increasing the gap of income inequality?
Interesting. I think there is some data that suggests that there is a bit of an income split between flat earth and round earth proponents. There's no great survey data on exactly who flat earthers are. There was one a few years ago that indicated that flat earthers tended to be of lower income brackets than round earthers. I will say that I've met some flat earthers who are fairly well off, and I've also met a number who are not so well off. Maybe they feel like they have a precocious income or they're underemployed. And one thing I'll note about that is although we don't have very rigorous study data on flat earther incomes, that conspiracy theories tend to be more prominent among people who are experiencing some kind of instability. So it does track that, a conspiracy belief would maybe be more popular among disenfranchised people. And the other note I'd make is that some flat earthers have made flat earth into their life. They've made it into their career. And um, except for a few people, I don't think that there's a ton of money to be made in that. So if you do quit your job to become a flat earth YouTuber, I wouldn't expect to make very much money from that
Mm,
lifestyle.
okay. How about, okay, so I asked you about the income inequality. How about mental health? Because if my friend tells me, oh, I believe the earth is flat, I'm going to ask about his sanity, and if there are some correlations of depression, loneliness, or whatever. Like for example, I question the sanity of some of my friends who believe in Donald Trump. And I say, how is that possible? You are an immigrant like me, yet you like this guy who says Mexicans are rapists. So I question their mental health.
Mhm.
I wonder if anyone questioned the mental health of flat earthers.
Yes and no. It's interesting because although I do think things like loneliness and a certain level of gullibility are very popular and are very common in the flat earth movement, I don't think that all conspiracy theorists are necessarily mentally ill. And I know that's a porous line. Mental health isn't just something diagnosable or not. But a lot of conspiracy theories are appealing to a large swath of people because they're playing on these thought processes that we all have. When we're faced with a lack of information or the information we have doesn't really uphold our prior beliefs, we'll go looking for alternate explanations. And I think a lot of people in the flat earth community who don't want to believe in science will be very drawn to theories like flat earth, which tell them that they're clever and that their previous beliefs were correct. And so, although I think there is maybe a mental misfiring happening there, I don't know that it's exactly mental illness. So it's a bit of a yes and no question. And there's no one single model of a flat earther. Some people might struggle with mental health and some people might be perfectly sane and still believe it.
Wow. How about political leniencies? Is there any relationship or correlation between flat earthers and the right extremists or maybe the left extremists? What's their leniency, political?
I've found that they tend to lean conservative. Not all of them. I've met plenty of independents, flat earthers who say they don't vote at all. But I do think it's a generally conservative leaning movement. And I think the reason for that is flat earth for many people is a very religious belief. They'll tie it to very Christian evangelical thought. And that's predominantly a conservative movement in the US. So I think that's where the crossover comes in. And most flat earthers you'll meet are probably Republicans in the US.
Okay, we all know about all these kind of conspiracy theories going around. I mean, flat earthers is maybe the less harmful, but there are so many other ones. There are anti-Semitic conspiracy
Mhm.
theories. There is that the Jews are trying to control the world. That everyone, I don't know, have meetings in George Soros' office, and now Bill Gates is putting microchips in our brain through the, I don't know, COVID vaccine, whatever. I hear it all. I'm sure you and your profession. So how susceptible are we to all these conspiracy theories? Do all of us believe in certain level, or it's just people who just say, show me the proof and I don't believe anything until you show me some real evidence, scientific evidence?
Mhm. I think it varies. I think all of us have a certain susceptibility to conspiracy theories. And, honestly, sometimes certain theories turn out to be true. Watergate, for instance, was a
Mm.
theory until it was proved, but that doesn't mean that all conspiracy theories are valid. I think a lot of conspiracy theorists are strangely motivated by fear. They don't want to believe the reality that's in front of them. So they go looking for comfort. And conspiracy theories, in their way, do provide comfort for people because it tells them that their preferred reality is right or that somebody is in control and events aren't completely random and frightening. So, yes, we're all susceptible. Certain folks, I think, are a bit more susceptible than others.
Mm. Okay, let's say I have a friend who confessed to me after hearing this interview that he is a flat earth believer. How would I go around other than I don't know, show them pictures of the earth? How is this? How can I prove that the earth is not flat?
Well, there's some really easy, honestly, some very fun ways. If you want to go to the beach and watch the sunrise or the sunset over the horizon, the way that appears could only happen on a round Earth because you'll see the sun go, degree by
Mm,
degree over
mm,
the curve. And it's quite obvious when you look at it that way. You can watch ships disappear the same way,
mm.
their hulls disappear first. And there are more specific scientific proofs you can do. You can do proofs with patterns of the stars across the night sky. But, as easy as it is to debunk based on visible evidence, I think another part of the equation needs to be asking someone, well, why on earth would anyone make up that Earth is flat?
Mm.
Um, and I think there's some very convoluted reasoning that even goes into believing that theory. So you can show them empirical evidence, and I think you can very gently bring up the maybe the ridiculousness of the underlying argument.
Okay. So let's go back to the example of my friend, and he tells me, "Oh, I think the Earth is flat," and I say, "No, you are crazy. I don't believe you. Just look at any scientific book." And then they will feel maybe rejected and isolated. How do they deal with this?
That's a really tough question because a lot of flat earthers do feel isolation. They feel like when they join this movement, that their friends, their round earth friends, will make fun of them or that they don't have too much in common with anyone else. And one thing I've found in speaking to people who used to be flat earthers who have since seen the light is that they were able to deconvert because they had people in their lives who accepted them when they came back. People who said it's okay that you thought Earth was flat. We're cool now, and I'm not going to make fun of you for that. I think a lot of flat earthers stay in the movement because they're afraid of being mocked and they're afraid of coming back to finding that they don't have the community that they used to have. And I think we need to keep the door open for people who are willing to change their minds.
And I wonder, I mean, when I first saw your book, I thought that was the most hilarious topic of conversation. I wonder what have been the feedback. I mean, I'm sure some people will think it's funny, but I think you probably step on some toes. Have you had any negative feedback as well?
I don't read my feedback. My husband tells me there is a flat earther writing some very upset remarks on my author page. And you know what? That's all right. Broadly, from most people, I've got actually wonderful feedback. And I did get a very nice note from a flat earther the other day saying he hadn't read it, but he knows me and he thinks the book will be fair. And that's all I can really ask. I do think it's kind of a funny theory sometimes, but at its heart, the people who believe in it are still people and they're people I know at this point, and I hope that I can give an accurate portrayal of what they believe and explain very nicely why it's wrong.
Well, the worst thing that could happen to an author is indifference. I mean, whether you get
Mhm.
5 stars or 1 star, that's okay as long as you get you, unless well, at least you get a reaction to what you are trying to communicate. I wonder if I have asked you a few questions already, and I wonder if there's anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to bring up.
Oh my goodness. Well, one thing that I think is important is we're talking about how flat earth sounds like a kind of harmless theory or sometimes an even funny theory. But you mentioned earlier that there are some very frightening theories that are anti Semitic or bigoted towards racial minorities. And I think it's important to explain that conspiracy theories don't just exist in a bubble. When people believe in one, they're more susceptible to believing in others. And I've noticed some people get into flat Earth just because they're interested in what it claims and get pulled into more extreme directions and start getting into political conspiracy theories that, in some cases, call for violence, or they'll get pulled into anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and try and combine that with flat Earth in a way that I think is unfortunately a bit hateful. So as much as I say, yes, you can laugh at flat earth theory and you should leave the door open for people who want to come back from flat earth theory, that we should also be aware that joining the flat earth movement is not without consequences and that you should be ready to help people move away from more hateful beliefs, because unfortunately they do permeate that conspiracy ecosystem online.
Well, this is an important subject because regrettably, I have seen through, especially with COVID, I have been losing some friends. Particular, I have lost three friends that I decided it's not worth it because in fact, I mean, it's a nice topic for a book, but it's something that is happening in our real life. We have the Bill Gates believer of his chip, or we have some atrocious, incredible belief, and so I wonder for us who have friends like that, how can we react? Should we cut them off? Should we try to keep them in? How can we keep them in, considering that some get attracted by some extreme views?
It's tough. And, when someone has extreme views that are harmful to you, I would say to prioritize your own safety and your own sanity. I from a family of Jewish heritage. And when someone starts talking about anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, I need to think whether it's worth my time to engage with that person or prioritize my own safety and sanity. So I would say put your own mental health first. But if you do feel like you can still engage with that person, I think it helps to try and keep them grounded in reality, and to try and show them, the humanity of the people that they're denigrating, and to point out the places where that conspiracy theory has failed them. If your friends said everybody who got the COVID shot is going to die in 6 months, well, call them up 6 months later and say, I'm still here. You want to go get dinner?
Mm.
um, and so things like that, I think, can keep people anchored in the real world. But it's not entirely on us to snap people out of their beliefs. They need to want to come back
Mm.
to. So it's a very difficult tightrope to walk. And I have tremendous sympathy for people who are trying to pull friends and loved ones out of conspiracy beliefs.
Wow, thank you so much. That helps me a lot. Well, Kelly, can you tell us one more time the title of the book and where can the listeners follow the work that you're doing?
Sure thing. The title of the book is Off the Edge: Flat Earthers, Conspiracy Culture, and Why People Will Believe Anything. You can find the book anywhere online, on your, hopefully in your local bookshops. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, my username is just my name. It's Kelly Weill.
Kelly, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.